band is this?
Everybody poops sometimes.
Give us the smother.
Wake up, sweetness.
Your first time should be more than special.
I'm in, Savannah said. Good Lord, Gemma. When a man and a woman, in this case, really, really love each other, what happens is they fuck.
Ooh, hello?
Oh, dang it, I lost my fish. This next word almost sounds like Quidditch. Quidditch milade Diana Agosiagath an Fiedian.
As much as I love fucking you, sweetness. We stared into each other's eyes whilst I moaned in ecstasy.
Having consumed half of the bourbon, I keep saying bourbon. You know, every time I mess up on a word, Stunt Mama just shows up.
She had her seductive smile on her lips.
I said we couldn't have sex. I didn't say anything about everything else. Ew. Happy to help.
Biatch. You are the spark of light and the vastness of my night. His note, like a finality to a beautiful, breathtaking song.
I'm sorry, what? Hi, everybody. Kay? You've been diagnosed with a heart condition? Kay, when you remember what it is, send me a message. And I'll see if I can, you know, help in any way I can. Because you know I have a heart condition, and if it's anything like mine, I can try and help put some perspective on it for you. Man, don't our bodies just suck? Human beings. It's like we were born to break. And I hate that. Especially when it happens to people I care about. Stump Mama's mama, congratulations on getting first place. And Kay, regardless of the news, it is a blessing to have you here. Thank you for being here. Amlas, wonderful to see you as always. And Mal's here as well. Hi, Mal. All I remember is that a portion of my heart is stiffening and causing my blood to back up into my organs. Fuck. Okay, well, they found it. I'm assuming there's a plan, or there will be a plan of some kind. Medication for sure, but there will be. All right. Excuse me. It's evidently not severe enough to rush things. Well, that is a good sign, believe me. Because when it comes to heart stuff, if it is, they will. That much I know. Your appointment is at the end of July. Okay. Hi, Gray. Good to see you. Boy, I tell you. This is your puzzle for tonight, folks, by the way. If you wish to do a puzzle. And Mother of Goats is here. Goat Mother. It started with a D. I mean, there's a lot of things that start with that, I guess. I'm not sure. You're... God damn it. Just keep us posted, okay? I'm gonna take stock in that they're not rushing it, or they're not rushing anything. I'm taking solace in that for the moment for you. That way I can at least realize that they are the professionals, and that if they're saying we don't need to see you until July, then yeah. Systolic dysfunction. Okay. Yeah, that's nothing like mine. Gray Kay was just sharing some really unfortunate health news. And she's already got enough on her plate right now. She doesn't need this. She doesn't deserve this. So I'm really hoping that the doctors will take good care of you, and they will, because that's what they're trained to do. They're professionals. We have to rely on their expertise. It doesn't mean that you don't have to question things. Ask questions. Ask all the questions. Even things that you might think don't make sense. Ask it anyway. That's how we learn. I'm just so pissed off for you. Exactly. You've already kind of been through that. So this is no different in the questions department, at least. Should have been caught 8 months earlier. Son of a bitch. That makes me upset for you. Well, like I said, keep us informed. We want to know. You have our thoughts, you have our prayers, you have our hearts. No, don't. Okay, don't put this on yourself. Don't go there at all. Okay? The only thing you need to focus on right now is what the next step is. That's all you have to focus on. What is the next step? That's the only thing that should be in your mind right now. Okay? Don't point any fingers. There's no need for that blame stuff. It's not going to help. It's not going to help you. It's not going to help anyone around you. Don't put yourself through that. Irregardless. All right. Well, this is part of the reason why I stream, so that we can find a nice, calm place to be. So, I guess tonight, this read is dedicated to you, Kay. All right? We're starting one of my books tonight. I'm a bit nervous about it, to be honest, because it's easy to read someone else's work, because I didn't write it. But some of you may look at this and go, oh man, this is what he wrote? Okay. Cool. So yeah, you never know, right? You never know. Hopefully it's good. I hope you like it. All I can do is read it and hope for the best. Sorry, I've started, for the Hype Mind folks, I've started just keeping a tab on the side and like listing out who's popped in. That way I can say thanks later. So I was just checking that. All right, so we've got the puzzle. You have all the confidence in me? Oh, that's a mistake. So I'm going to read the back again. I know we read it last time, but some of you may not have heard it. And just also to preface, I don't market my own stuff. I obviously can't stop you if you want to go check stuff out. It's not hard to find it. And Mad Locust is here. Hi, Mad. What's up? Did I miss that before? I'm sorry if I did. But yeah, I don't publicize. I'm here to publicize other people's stuff. But we are going to kind of take a break from that and read one of mine. And then I've got... Oh, so I've got the Clowns one, right, that I showed you last time. That's coming up next. But the other book that we're going to read came in. And this thing is huge. That's what she said. Look at this thing. This sucker is over 500 pages. We haven't read a long one like this in a while. It's like just shy of 500 pages. It is. It's a honker. Or as the author told me, she's thick. Geez, all the clown stuff? Okay, no relation, all right? I had no idea about that game that your daughter played. No connection at all. But hey, what wonderful time. And by the time we get to that book, they'll probably be bored with that game anyway. That's how those games go. All right, so we've got our book. I'm going to read the back real quick, and then we're just going to get into it. One can only hope. All right, so here's what the back says. In a dystopian world where time and resources are running out, Barry and his friends fight to survive. As Barry learns the truth of who he is and the legacy left for him, he must tackle the fight head on and lead the world he knows to safety. There's the back cover. Oh, and one piece of news that's kind of exciting for me. It's not going to pay a lot, and that's not really the point, but I've landed a voice role for a character in a video game that's being made. So I'm really excited about that. I don't know the name of the game yet. I only know that my voice will be of one of the main characters that's a samurai. And so I'm really excited to get that and, you know, get some stuff recorded for it. There's like a cutscene monologue that I'll read, and then there's obviously, you know, lines that the character has throughout the game. So I'm really excited. It'll be my first video game, so that's really fun. This tea is hitting the spot. But doesn't it always? And I say that every time, so thank you. I am excited. Thank you, Mal. All right, as I said last time with this book, the only thing that I regret of when I published it was I didn't make the chapters any smaller. I could have easily cut this sucker up into more chapters, but I didn't. And because of that, there's only 8 chapters in this book. But without further ado, we're going to get into chapter 1. It's called An Almost Normal Life. Oh, and by the way, this is in the realm of YA, young adult writing. So it's coming from that perspective. I vaguely remember what life was like. I was only a kid at the time, but everything on the news, in the streets, I remember it all like it was happening to me directly. In a way, I suppose it was. Being a little kid, I never thought that what was happening on the news and all around me would affect my life as I got older. It was just TV, right? Wrong. Barry Swisher was about 5 years old. His parents were sitting with him in the living room, glued to the news. The coverage was all about the space launch program that started not long ago. Oh, I should point out, there are references to things in here that are, quote, real life, but names have been changed. This new name I'm about to say will be definitely one of those, but I'm sure you'll figure it out. I can't help but say it. Stunt Mama, go do a puzzle, all right? Good to see you, by the way. The coverage was all about the space launch program that started not long ago. A man, Eli Dusk, sorry, I can't help but laugh, was in charge of the program and had planned on being Earth's savior by getting everyone off the dying planet and pushing them into space. No one knew how or when yet. It was all need to know. And that certainly wasn't Barry or his parents. Eye roll. It's fine. The winter outside was too cold. Bone-chilling, actually. He remembered hearing his parents say that a lot. What did that mean? The temperatures at this time of year made the outside air too dangerous unless you could afford one of the new masks they sold that softened and warmed up the particles in the air. If you didn't, or if you didn't have one of those, most people died in less than 5 minutes of exposure. Not to mention if your skin was exposed. Brutal. How was that ice cream cone, by the way? It was nice. Thanks. Thanks for asking. And still, as life went on, administrations ignored the threats of climate change and disregarded any science to it all. Even though the world outside, at least where they lived, was dead. It wasn't that different from normal days where being outside wasn't life-threatening. The virus that once plagued our world had eventually been handled in a matter of speaking, but by then, everyone was so isolated and used to that social gatherings or even work gatherings were rare. So, there they were, in the living room, dark as black hole outside. Barry stared at his parents' faces, and they in turn stared at the TV. Barry remembered vividly the look of fear and panic in their eyes. He didn't know how to describe it then, but he knows well enough now. Scientists predict only 20 years worth of resources before the planet begins to withdraw and life on every scale starts to perish. Again, words his little mind couldn't comprehend, but he recognized the look on his parents' faces as they listened to the news. In unison, they glanced down at their son, teary-eyed. He just gave them this adorable little smile to try and tell them things would be okay. That usually worked. But not this time. Not that day. They lived in the middle of the country. Normally, he could say that they were surrounded by fields of corn and other food sources, which ordinarily would make people fall asleep if he mentioned where he lived, and most people would fly right over them, instead of stopping to see the sights. But in today's age, this was the new beach. The food that grew there fed as many as possible. Beaches themselves no longer existed. Water parks were shut down due to unsafe conditions. Food was the new attraction because everyone wanted some, and there was never enough to go around. Barry, now older, 15 to be exact, had seen the world around him go to hell. His parents had worked tirelessly to make sure he understood that he needed to be smart and mindful, not muscular and brainless. The muscles still came, as he had hard labor out in the fields dictated his physique. He'd read so many books that he could taste the ink on the pages more than the corn he grew in his backyard. Sadly, in the 10 years that passed, his mother died of cancer, which showed up in people even faster than normal due to their living conditions. And Barry's father? He did his best, considering he had lost his wife and job. Barry, as a teenager, did what he could to keep his father comfortable. Don't feel bad, though. Barry was only 15 at this point, but there were many teenagers his age going through similar hardships. That's just how it was for lower-income families. You either lived where he did, which was 90% of the remaining population, or you lived up in one of the fancy chrome towers that had access to all the amenities and cleaner air you could want. For a price. Most couldn't afford it and resented those that could. The state was split, with chrome towers positioned strategically every 30 miles, with farm and low-income housing in between. The Department of Transportation had built a mega highway to connect them, 8 lanes on each side, with all the self-driving cars of the rich cruising down it. This mega highway ran between the towers and became what the old Route 66 used to be. Barry and his friends sometimes referred to this as Route 666, because it was full of people that deserved hell. But that's what resentment did to people. Barry's house stood surrounded by cornfields. In the months when it reached about 10 feet tall, life's noises were muffled. It almost felt peaceful to hide between the stalks. The major downside, the summer season was just as brutal as the winters. They had limited time to harvest what was grown, because if they didn't, it would burn up and waste in no time at all. This was a major reason why food was in such need. Growing it was difficult, and finding suitable places to make it grow even worse. You'd think that with such demand, Barry could be making houses out of money because he'd have so much of it. But no. The government put a stop to that, calling it inhumane and unfair of the world's population. They said they should be doing the right thing and making food available to all. In other words, don't make the rich pay too high a price. Exactly. And then they moaned about it. What's up, Rhino? How you doing? Or as Barry would say here, pricks. Barry admitted the food did cost a little more than it used to, but in order to cover expenses, it had to. Along with the harsh soil and atmospheric dangers to overcome, not to mention the types of chemicals they had to spray just to make the food larger and more bountiful, food wasn't cheap. But they never made enough to move into a chrome tower. The government made sure of that. Still, they had heat and AC, food, albeit the same almost every day, in their bellies. Life was livable, until he was reminded of the impending doom that was upon them. And by Barry's count, everyone only had about 10 years left. Barry's mother was named Mary, and Dave, his dad, was near death. He didn't have any siblings. It was just him, always had been. Although it's not like he didn't have people close to him outside of his simple home. And even then, simple sounded like he was poor, but his family had the technology that allowed them to survive. Windows that had automatic reflective shutters. Some even had solar panels that Barry may or may not have stolen over time from the rich. These shutters kept them safe from the extreme heat and allowed them to generate power. They also helped in the winter when the temperatures were too dangerous to be outside. Even on a sunny day, the outdoors appeared welcoming, but it was a ghost town unless you had the right protective gear. His best friends were the only ones close to him. They relied on each other to survive, learn, and thrive the best way possible. From the chrome towers above, where all the rich people sat pretty, or so they thought, it probably seemed like the less fortunate were suffering, and maybe they pitied them, or just pretended they didn't exist at all. But down there on the ground, Barry and others had a lot more control than the rich realized. And at night, the younger generation came out to play. Meek. Mama, hi there. How are ya? Meek, what's up, man? How was your day? Barry greeted him. His birth name was Michael III, but his friends called him Meek. He hated his real name. Like Barry, Meek was on the taller side for his age at 16, with short, scrappy brown hair and built like a brick wall. He wasn't someone you wanted to piss off without reason. Barry had seen what he could do on his bad days when the world got to him, but deep down, he wasn't a bad guy. Meek wore his typical baggy jeans and one of his custom t-shirts that had the word Meek in different fonts and graphic designs plastered all over it. Barry, my guy, today was okay. I found some new gear. You gotta check it out, Meek said as he motioned Barry over to his garage. Barry and Meek were neighbors, with only one house separating them. They could see each other across the street, but not close enough to have a conversation. Dusk signaled playtime for anyone wanting to be outside on the hotter days, and so the streets came alive. Street lights on, party on. That's how the saying would go. As Barry crossed the street, he observed his surroundings. The other houses were so worn down and in desperate need of repair. He wished he could do something about it. It would only be a couple of months before the heat got really bad during the day and they needed to stay protected. And I needed to skip a YouTube commercial. There we go. No one would help them. They could only help themselves. Barry, dressed in jeans and a long-sleeve tee, moved out of the way of some humming electric cars and entered Meek's yard. The driveway was lined with dead grass and some weeds that made a landing strip of green pointing to the garage in the back. It was a ranch-style home, like many in this neighborhood. Back in the day, it would have been a quick sell for sure. So, by found new gear, I am assuming that means you lifted it? Barry said with a smirk on his face. Barry and Meek gave each other their custom handshake greeting. Hey, what do you take me for? Can a guy just find stuff sitting outside a store? Meek said with the straightest face he could muster. No, Meek, not really. Barry responded in kind. They both laughed. They knew it was wrong, and they both understood if caught, it would cost them everything. Finders keepers, that's right. Punishment since the world went to hell became more severe. The idea was that if the punishment was harsh, it would prevent crime as life became more difficult. But what they didn't realize, or at least care to admit, was that when you back people into a corner, they will do anything to survive. Sometimes jail was a better option. You were safer and at least fed. Okay, so let's see what fell off the truck today, Barry said with his arms crossed, fully invested. Meek, in true style, went to the garage door and, like a game show host, swung it open to reveal the prize behind door number 1. As soon as it opened, Meek kept his eyes on Barry to see his reaction. Barry's arms dropped and his jaw fell with them. Sitting on the table inside the garage was a large box displaying a printed label, causing Barry to lose his composure. Is that really what it says it is? Barry pointed as he moved slowly towards it like a moth to a flame. Uh-huh, Meek said with an ever-growing grin. How did you find a box full of blue chip headgear? This particular headgear was desired above all else because of the cool things it could do. Gone were the days of plugging things in and only being able to talk and listen through them. This was beyond that. Depending on the mode chosen, these had a HUD that shared a map of one's surroundings, but also key points of interest that the owner programmed in. One could video chat, send commands to other blue chip devices, if you had any, and with the right upgrades, scan through walls. Only the well-off had gear like this, and now Meek had a box of them. So, when I wrote this, I had no idea that the Apple goggles, what they call Vision Pros or something, were going to be a thing, but that's kind of what it reminds me of. Kind of freaky. How future just kind of shows up. How? Where? When did you get these? Barry asked in disbelief. Meek stood by the box like it was his prize cow from the state fair. Let's just say I know a guy who robbed another guy, and now they're mine. Barry turned the box around so the logo was facing away from the street. Meek, these are amazing, but you can't let anyone just see you have these. We'll raise too many questions, or you'll get robbed yourself. These aren't cheap. How many are in here? Well, there are 4. And don't worry. There's one in there for me, you, Mira, and the other we should probably sell or use as a bribe to get other things we need. Ah, Mira. The 3 of them had been friends forever, but Barry only had eyes for Mira. She lived a couple of blocks over and worked in the scrapyard. Barry thought she was a slice of the cosmos sent to torment him daily with her beauty. Speaking of, Meek's phone buzzed and a notification glowed about 6 inches off the surface of the screen. It was a picture of Mira, dressed and ready to go to town with a quick message saying she was ready to roll. Barry and Meek stepped out of the garage, looking about instinctively to make sure no one was watching, as Meek closed the large door behind him, and then shoved some old school metal trash cans in the way of the handle. Barry wondered if that would be enough, but no one ever really came into this neighborhood that would think the wiser, so it was a whatever moment. The 2 young men strolled down the block and made their way towards Mira's place. Occasionally, they gave a head nod to someone they knew, but overall, the streets were calm in this part of town. All the cookie-cutter houses were built in the early 2000s era. You could tell where some minor remodeling had taken place, usually botched because no one could afford to hire anyone. But hey, at least they tried. Every house had solar panels, to an extent, but some were definitely less than others. The government had run a program back in 2040 that helped houses get at least a basic start package with solar, but it was up to the homeowners to advance it if they wanted to. Most did, but by then, the promise of affordable alternative energy flew out the window with the stock market soaring and the cost of this new option becoming unattainable for the lower class. By the time they reached Mira's, she was standing outside waiting for them, dressed to impress in a long, flowing summer dress and her light pink shades and some jewelry. She greeted her friends in her usual Mira style. If you guys walked any slower, I could have run laps downtown by now, she said, smiling with her hands on her hips. We could have walked faster, and you'd still run laps on us, Mira, Barry said, smiling back in kind. And it was true. Mira was the most athletic of the 3. She could wear a trash bag and still look like it was on purpose, according to Barry. Meek couldn't care less, but that's Meek for you. Always thinking about the next score. Barry, on the other hand, was either thinking of Mira or science, in hopes to impress Mira. You 2 knuckleheads ready to go or what? The night is wasting, and I hear the new food truck down on 4th has actual meat. Like, the real stuff. Wait, you mean like cow meat? Meat? Meek said, suddenly interested and motivated. The one and only, Mira replied. Sounds great, but it's probably super pricey, I haven't seen or even smelled real meat in months. Barry had hoped they could go to the movies and just relax with a mindless film. True meat that wasn't processed and canned was rare, plus expensive. But, in good spirits because he'd followed Mira into a burning house, he changed his tune. Well, let's go before they run out. That's my guy. Let's get moving, Mira said as she walked between both of them and put each arm around their shoulders. It was moments like these when life seemed almost normal. 3 friends going out on an evening to do something simple but together. It made the impending doom of the world far less real. A distinct change in mood overtook them as they approached the downtown area. Like crossing one side of the street to the other, the buildings, lights, people, it all changed. For the 3 of them, it was a weight lifted, and they could breathe easier in the downtown area. Music could be heard from the outdoor bars, one on every corner. Foot traffic for blocks. Buildings were 3 or 4 stories high, and the neon lights were all around them. To them, it was Vegas, except without the feeling of losing all your money once you step into a building. The main difference, however, was that marketing and promotions had received an upgrade over the years, and now showed up from buildings in 3D. It was unusual to see something flat against the wall. As they walked and marveled at the scenery, clothing line choices, makeup, cars, all electric of course, they all popped out in front of them. They couldn't afford any of this stuff, but it was fun for them to be baited all the same. Mira could see the food truck as she was talking about half a block away, and sure enough, the line was insane, stretching at least half a block. Oh, that's it, up there, she pointed with excitement. Come on, the line is huge. The 3 scurried across the street and joined the other eager customers, hoping to eat some fresh meat. Do you have enough crypto for this purchase, boys? Mira said, but also, they all came from the same place. Probably? Maybe? We'll see. I haven't bought anything in a while, so I might. Meek explained as Barry nodded in agreement. No one used credit cards or actual money anymore, especially the paper Benjamins. Those were collector's items now. Iris scans accessed your account that was encrypted to high heaven, and that's how everyone paid for things. Ultranet was the main company in that region that controlled the internet and was very reliable. Literally everyone could use it. After waiting what seemed like an hour, their turn arrived. They realized it wasn't much meat, but the tacos were worth it. The funny thing was, with all the advancements in technology, somehow food trucks still had a solid footing. But not surprising, more restaurants were done for. Not just because of the lack of food variety, but because no one wanted to sit down and eat casually anymore. Fresh meals made of natural ingredients became legacy. Going out to eat now for the food they had today just didn't bring customers out of their homes. It's all very doom and gloom, isn't it, in the future? The food truck was about as good as it got for out-of-the-house meals. And at that moment, Barry, Meek, and Mira were sitting on a bench on a concrete slab where grass used to grow, silently enjoying the most flavorful meal they had had in weeks. They smiled at each other as they slowly devoured their tacos. And that's chapter 1. I wouldn't have taken a sip of my tea had I known it was right there, but I forgot. So a very different style of story compared to what we've been reading up to this point. We've met Barry, we've met Meek and Mira, all buddies. They live in this city where, you know, in today's day and age, right here and now, it would seem very normal where they lived, very typical. very middle class, if you will. But now, in their world, not so much. Oh, this tea is heavenly. Allergies are kicking my throat. But if throats have butts, I don't think they do. Either way, the tea is helping. Oh boy. We have some shout outs to do. We've got... Let's take care of the mamas. There's 3 different mamas in here right now. Mother of Goats, Stunt Mama, Mama House Gaming. It's kind of funny. Sorry? Don't be sorry. I love it. We have a lovely Eternal Grey. I always feel like I should apologize for my username. Why? I love your username. Mama House Game. If you want to go game, go to Mama's house. That's what it means. Although I am curious now that you think you want to change it, what would you change it to? No, I did change it to that. Oh, okay. What was it before then? Because I don't think I knew you before it was Mama House Gaming. Not that I'm aware of, anyway. Ice Queen? Ooh. Mysterious. Dangerous. Oh. By the way. I've mentioned it before, but I'm going to mention it more often now that we're reading it. Not really. My husband gave me that nickname because I have no feeling. Oh my god. That is not true. Would like to have a chat with this individual. If you do ! enter, well, he's dead. Well, so I guess I can't talk to him about it then. Well, he was wrong, okay? He was very wrong. ! Enter. You will get put into a giveaway if you want to win a copy of this. And by a copy, I mean this copy. Once I'm done, someone will get it. I will be sending it to whomever. So, just so you know. Wait, hold on. That's not right. What the hell? Hold on. It's not supposed to be like that. It also helps if I'm on the right screen. Okay, so yeah, I obviously messed that up. Stump Mama's Mama, hold your horses. I need to redo the giveaway. I'm gonna have you guys re-enter. Hold on. It's not supposed to be to subs only. I don't know how I missed that. Oy. Okay, just ignore that. Ignore that, please. I am deleting this. Unbelievable. How did I mess that up? This shouldn't take me 2 seconds. Oh, I see where I messed it up. Okay. Sheesh. All right. Can you try enter again? I want to see if it works or if I need to reset the link as well. I might have to. Oh, no, that worked. Never mind. We're good. Okay, Mama House Gaming, you should now be able to enter. There you go, you're in. It works. Wonderful. Sorry about that. I messed up. I believe it's called the human aspect. Okay. You are quite welcome. Oh, nice job on the puzzle, by the way. I'm sorry I can't sub to anyone right now. Don't worry about it. In fact, let me check to see where we're at with ads, because... In fact, since we're in between chapters, I'm going to run the ad right now just to get it out of the way. And then we can continue on with chapter 2. So that should be starting momentarily. There we go. Man, I even did nose spray, but it doesn't seem to matter. It's just... Mal, thank you for doing that. Oh, and IO squats. Thank you for gifting Mama House Gaming a sub. That was super kind of you. You didn't have to do that. That's super generous. I see you. Well, we have just under a minute left on the ads, so we shouldn't be too far off. Man, these allergies are driving me nuts. Makes it really difficult to read a book when you're dealing with stuff. I will not get into the details. Blech. All right, we got about 10 seconds. Sarias, it's okay, I come for the reading and puzzles, stay for the eye candy. Oh god, you're funny. Is it because you have your cam on and you're checking yourself out in OBS? Is that what it is? Oh, speaking of which, Mama House Gaming. I am going live tonight, but no. Mama House Gaming, this is the shirt that you gifted some time ago. Yeah, where is Super? Is he cleaning the bathroom with a toothbrush? Chapter 2, by the way, is called Explode to Implode. We're going to meet some new characters in this chapter. I have no idea how many pages it is. It's a lot. Oh my god. We'll see how we do. The sun's intensity is increasing. Fire Pokemon will appear in the safari. Pokemon up to level 30 can appear. Shocker. All right. Yeah, it's like about 30 pages for this chapter, so we'll see how far we get. Are we ready? I am. Look at them, Simon. All those insects running around trying to live their pathetic little lives in the streets below. What a waste. Yeah, you got gifted a sub. And I just wanted to... This shirt I'm wearing is the one that you gifted to me. So thank you again. The words of a sinister governor of the state traveled across the spacious living room. He lived in the most... He lived in the most secure chrome tower on the highest level, reserved only for him. Armed guards sat outside. Cameras covered the lobby, stairs, and elevator. Not that anyone ever took the stairs. His suite was full of chrome, steel, granite, and gold finishings. The office of his mega suite had a massive heads-up display instead of monitors, and at his side, I can read, stood Simon, his most trusted assistant and henchman. For decades, the political scene had always been one of shadowy cover-ups and deception to gain power and control. But these days, you didn't need to worry about the cover-up. It didn't matter anymore. It wasn't that people didn't care, because they did. Once the wool was removed from their eyes and the public was forced to see the political representation as for what it really was, they were all of a sudden furious. In the beginning, there were protests and online outrage from famous actors and well-known online activists demanding that the regime be changed and started over. There was even Okay. Again, writing something here that future predictions. I swear it's like The Simpsons. There was even a coup attempt on the state's headquarters that ended in a bloodbath. One thing about the update of technology was also the secret installation of military hardware and software on all government buildings. Many years ago, there was a coup attempt on the nation's capital. It failed miserably, but it made the corrupt leaders realize just how close the public came to seeing what really happens behind closed doors. So they voted and installed military-grade defense systems to fight off all those that dared try. Anyone who opposed the change was quietly removed. Of course, we didn't learn this until much later when documents were leaked all over the web. The last coup attempt post-military hardware was over faster than it began. Barry's dad remembered watching the live stream that wasn't from a protester, but a camera installed on purpose by the government. As the march of thousands of angry citizens moved closer to HQ, suddenly large Gatling guns raised from the ground. 3 of them, left, center, and right. The angry and loud crowd froze. You could hear a pin drop until a voice came over a loudspeaker. Fire. Within 30 seconds, anyone that didn't run out of the way of the guns waving left and right were cut down like corn in the harvest. A massacre stained the walls and sidewalks, and since that day, no one dared anything again. Politicians could say or do whatever they please, with no one brave enough to stop them. Simon stood tall with a proud and loyal look on his face. "Are you ready for Phase 1? Should I make preparations?" he said, looking directly at the governor. "No need, Simon. Preparations have already been made. Dial 9 and tell them to go. It's time. These insects are far too comfortable, and my precious resources are running out. It's time they remember who they serve. Simon simply nodded and removed his cell phone from his inner suit coat pocket. Simon may have been a highly trained henchman for the governor, but he always dressed with style and class, no matter what he was doing. With his phone in his hand and one push of a button, he dialed 9. "Yes," came a voice on the other end. "It's time. Do it," Simon ordered, and then the phone line went dead. "Was Arrow. I see you." I'm trying to remember how to say that properly. Probably messed it up, but hi. How are ya? The governor watched live footage from a few cameras mounted on buildings in the downtown area. There was a particular building that everyone liked to frequent, the movie theater. It was still a long-loved tradition and something that never faded with time, even though everyone could enjoy the same cinematic feeling with their in-home headset displays, assuming you could afford one, of course. It wasn't new technology by any means, but the enhancements and improvements turned them into subscription-based programs that allowed you to watch any movies, new or old, as long as you paid the monthly fee. Barry, Meek, and Mira had finished their savory meal and strolled back home when it happened. They were only half a block from the movie theater when, all of a sudden, you could hear screams from the inside that would make your hair stand on end. And then, the explosion. A fireball punched its way out of the front door, followed by a concrete and steel eruption that landed on the sidewalk, streets, and across at the park opposite the movie theater. The three of them watched as if it was happening in slow motion, but it ended in a matter of seconds. The deafening explosion left in its wake bodies scattered about. The smoke snaked skyward, adding more fumes to the already poor air quality. Those who were close by and survived the explosion did their best to crawl away, but the rubble and steel obstacles made it almost impossible to escape this living nightmare. Barry, Meek, and Mira ran towards the theater on instinct, not sure what they'd find or could do to help. They just knew they had to try. It was how they were raised. They stopped in their tracks as they saw one soul emerge from the black smoke. It looked like a middle-aged woman, but her left arm was gone, her face unrecognizable. She stumbled for the sidewalk and dropped to the ground like a sack of potatoes. "Oh my God," Mira said, covering her mouth with her hands as tears welled up in her eyes. Meek and Barry held onto her, keeping her upright, and the three of them backed away slowly from the theater, or what was left of it. "We can't stay here. There might be more explosions. We have to go," Barry said firmly. Meek didn't argue, and Mira was in too much shock to notice. As they turned to look away from the horrid scene, Barry looked up and saw a camera. As clear as daylight, he could see the camera following them with a red light indicating they were possibly being recorded. He quickly looked away and kept them moving. Once they were 20 feet more away, Barry spoke up. "They were watching," he said quietly. "Who was watching? What do you mean?" Meek said, confused. "I don't know who, but someone was watching from a camera back there. I saw one follow us as we started to walk away. This wasn't an accident, Meek. This attack was on purpose, and they watched," Barry said with a fierce look in his eye while turning to stare at Meek. Meek looked a little overwhelmed and rightfully panicked. And once Mira gained her composure of the horror she just witnessed, they were able to walk together, quickly making their way back to their neighborhood. Mira's mom was out on the street looking for her, needless to say, frantically. When she saw her, she cried and ran to her like a long-lost daughter. "Mom, we're okay. I'm okay." "Oh, baby, it's all over the web. The entire thing was live streamed for us all to see. Mira's mom cupped her daughter's face, examining her for any sign of injury, like a mother watching their toddler fall for the first time. She kept Mira close to protect her from any further harm. Who? Barry insisted. Who streamed it? It came directly from gov.web, she said, scared and worried about their safety. She cradled Mira tighter, almost to remind herself she hadn't grown up and become a young lady. But how she wished for the early days when Mira relied on her mother for anything and everything. Ah, those bastards, Barry said, gritting his teeth. He may have had his own challenges to overcome, but Barry cared about the people here. They think they can do whatever they want and get away with it. Well, we're gonna do something about it. Oh, really? Like what? Meek blurted out, fearing what Barry might come up with. Aggression wasn't his typical reaction, but Meek could see change in his eyes that made him concerned. You said it yourself. They know who we are because a camera watched us. A camera was watching you? Mira's mother said as she held back her tears, squeezing her only daughter harder. Yes, there was a camera. It was watching us. Was that on the live stream? Did you see us? Barry asked, stepping closer. No, I don't. You weren't on the stream. The stream stopped moments after the explosion, Mira's mom said, trying to think straight and remember any detail beyond the blast. Then it was personal, Barry said plainly. Whoever was watching us did it to see our reaction and gauge our response. They wanted us to react. Sick pricks. Barry took a deep breath and stopped pacing. They think they can keep scaring us into following their will, their rules. This, he said, pointing towards downtown, this isn't law and order. This is control by fear. And now we know they will go to even more extreme lengths to make sure it stays that way. And so what do you propose we do? Storm HQ and gun them down where they stand? Meek said, almost laughing at how ludicrous the idea sounded out loud. No, that would be suicide. But we are smarter than they are. We keep our heads down, no more downtown visits. They'll think they've won and believe they've beaten us. But we're gonna work our asses off and show them we're not to be underestimated. You can't step on us and assume you can get away with it. Not anymore. And with that inspiring speech, Barry marched away to his own house, fueled by tonight's incident, knowing he wouldn't sleep a wink. Meek went home too, and Mira stayed inside with her mother where they at least felt safer. All the while, both Mira and Meek wondered what Barry had in mind. But in truth, even Barry didn't fully understand what to do. All he knew was that enough was enough, and it was time to fight back. Thank you for the check-in, mother of goats. How's everybody doing? Just taking a quick tea break. Got a sip of the tea. I will say, of all the fiction stuff that I've written, this one was certainly a lot of fun to write. And the entire book, the entire story concept came from a dream that lasted like, I don't know, 10 seconds, or at least that's what I remember of the dream. So this whole book came out of a 10-second dream. So that was kind of fun. Barry entered through the back door that led into the kitchen and dining room area. He peeked into the living room through a kitchen pass window and eyed the recliner in the center of the room, in the corner of the room. His dad lay in it with the footrest up and a blanket draped over it of the top half of his body. Barry heard him coughing. Before entering the living room, he leaned against one of the dining oak chairs and closed his eyes, drawing in a deep breath. Barry? Barry, is that you? Came a weak voice. Taking another half second, Barry buried the day deep inside and wore a smile for his dad rather than drag the heavy burden of the world around down on him. Hey, Dad, yeah, it's me. You need a drink? I can bring you some water. Come here, son, was all he heard, so in he went. Barry stopped near the entryway, smiling at his father, allowing his eyes to adjust to the dim room with only the light from the TV flickering like a candle. The couch had been well loved over the years. You could see the divots from where everyone used to sit when the family came together. But that was then, not now. Due to its age and condition, it was empty and void of life. It wasn't welcoming and always reminded him of past years, better years. But Barry sat in it anyway. Barry, I saw what happened on the TV. Please tell me you weren't anywhere near there. Please. His dad beckoned, using up a lot of his strength. Barry could see the stress taking a toll on his father's body. This incident had obviously been broadcasted everywhere locally, but Barry wondered if it had received national news too. Dad, please, try to calm down. I can see you getting worked up about this. And no, I am okay. We are all okay. There were plenty of people not okay, but we weren't close enough to be hurt. Even if that were technically true, the truth in this conversation was skating on thin ice. Barry's dad simply nodded, closing his eyes again, and fell back asleep. Barry took a moment to reposition the blankets and make sure he was completely covered properly. Once finished, he sat back all the way on the couch and rested his eyes as a tear streaked his cheek. The impact of the evening, the anger and fear all caught up to him at once. Barry knew he had a choice. He could both burrow and hide until there was nothing left to live for, or start working to figure out what to do next. Barry replayed the explosion over in his head. Something struck him about this explosion. Barry was no demolitions expert, but it scratched at him, and getting out of his mind seemed impossible. Instead of allowing fear to override his thinking, Barry tried to understand what happened. He kept muttering to himself the order in which he heard things. He knew he didn't see the whole thing because their backs were turned some of the time, but he remembered what he heard. Barry hustled down the narrow hallway, passing his parents' bedroom, a bathroom, and finally stepped into his own room. The room itself wasn't exactly clean and tidy, but no surprise there. He was a teenager, after all. However, what made it messy wasn't just an unmade bed, but the piles of unorganized books, at least to everyone else, and stacks of papers seemingly scattered all over. Upon entering the room, you could see a window that faced the backyard and ultimately the fields of corn. On the left wall was his bed, jumbled with a sheet and blanket. Straight ahead, a dresser faced Barry, housing some simple clothes choices, but served a better purpose for piling books. And to Barry's immediate right was his desk. He spent more time here than anywhere else when he wasn't working outside. More books piled here along with papers and notes from different projects. Barry darted to his desk and looked for something to write with, and an empty space to write down his thoughts. He sat in the creaking silver chair and started scribbling. Thank you, Rhino. Appreciate the lurk. Screams. Fireball. Explosion. Bodies. Why did they hear screams first? What makes someone scream before an explosion? Not even just someone, it was everyone. Barry leaned back with his hands covering his head as he tried to think, realizing some answers might be on TV or on the web. He grabbed his laptop and fired it up. His PC had seen better days, but it still had some decent software. The power button was one you held down while the camera also scanned your face. But once that was done, Barry covered the camera to conceal himself. He didn't trust anyone in the government with his facial recognition software, and after tonight, he had another sound reason not to. In the past years, plenty of news reports nationwide told stories of people being snatched up and jailed only because of the computers recording whereabouts and using that information illegally. Barry went straight to social media. Looking at iRecord TV, Barry could see quite a few first-hand accounts of the incident with hundreds of thousands of views already. The first video, only a minute in length, gave Barry a shaky reminder of all he had seen and heard, but it still didn't explain why the shrieking happened first. Barry almost gave up on this clip until he watched it from the beginning and noticed something. In the first few seconds, you see someone running out of the theater doors moments before the screaming happens. It was difficult to tell who it was or if they were a friend or a foe. The camera pointed directly at the theater, while the scene of someone running away was caught over the shoulder of someone else playing their guitar close by to the spot he and his friends had eaten their food. This evidence was still puzzling, but it helped. Barry stood up and paced, thinking out loud, mumbling about the explosion, retracing the shock that flowed through him. Why the theater? It couldn't have been gas. Mrs. Gibber! I can't even have the volume up on this. I'm already falling asleep. That's so kind of you. How are you? Thank you for being here. We're just reading a book, relaxing. Why the theater? It couldn't have been gas. Looking down at his clock, he knew it was late. It read 11:27 p.m. He rubbed at his eyes and kept on going with his thoughts. He wouldn't sleep otherwise. I was falling asleep before pulling you up, and now I'm gonna zonk? Perfect. We know everyone inside saw what was about to happen because they responded in the same way. That's why we heard it. It wouldn't have been loud enough if only a few people screamed. Or it could have been misleading as part of the movie playing and they were scared or excited. So we can strongly assume everyone knew it was about to happen, but how? Barry plopped onto his bed, still dressed. He lay there thinking about this one question over and over. But life, the events, the adrenaline, it all wore off, and soon Barry fell asleep, with pencil in hand. The next morning brought peace and sunshine as if nothing ever happened mere hours ago. If you looked outside Barry's window into the backyard, there were actually birds flying around, the sun shining without being overbearing. And at that moment, life just felt right. Mitchell. Barry still lay in the same sleeping position when he zonked out last night, but this morning he wasn't alone. It was about 9 a.m., and Meek had come over to check on him, feeling worried and rightfully so. Even though this little speech had been somewhat of a motivator, it came out of character for Barry. The guy leaned towards science, not government espionage. Same, I'm trying to get stream stuff done, but now I just want to snuggle up in bed. Do it. Snuggle up in bed. You deserve that for yourself. Stream will be there later. What? Sorry? What's going on? Hydrate? Okay. It was about time for a drink. Stupid allergies. I'm snuggling in bed and puzzling. Nice. Oh, yeah, the puzzle. I kind of lost that page. I know it's up on my OBS, but it won't update unless I'm on it. There we go. Adamantine, hello. I'm debating on snuggling up in bed and curling up to go to bed, but I'm trying to figure out where to get some food for dinner. Ooh, that's a tough one. Dinner or sleep? Oof. I would say, based off of experience, you should get some sleep, or get some food, but only get a light meal, just enough to fill you up a little bit, and then go to sleep. I gotta go pass out. Good night. Yeah, no worries, Kay. You get some sleep. Page 34, by the way, is where we're at. Continuing on. And by the way, for those of you that are new in here, newish from when I started, feel free to do !enter, and that will get you into a giveaway for this book. Once I'm finished reading it, someone's going to win it, and I'm going to send it to them. Let me just confirm it's actually still working, and yes, it is. Adamantine, you are in the giveaway. Good job. Oh. Wait, did you write it? I did. This is one of mine. This is one of mine. Goat Mother's in there. Good job. Mitchell, you're in there too. Excellent. All right, so we know it's working. Wonderful. Meek stepped closer to Barry as he laid seemingly... Wow, hello, excuse me. Start that again. Sheesh. Meek stepped closer to Barry as he laid seemingly dormant, unknown to Meek that he could erupt upon awakening. Barry, he whispered a few times. Nothing happened. Barry, wake up, buddy. Still, no response. Meek looked around and found a ruler on the desk. He picked it up and poked Barry gently in the chest. Barry? More poking. Barry! He said a little louder, and then poked harder. Screens! Barry blurted out, surprising Meek while springing to life on his bed, sitting straight up. Meek shrieked as the ruler flew out of his hand and landed somewhere. Gaining his composure and breathing in deeply, he sat down on the end of Barry's bed. Oh, damn you, Barry, jerk. I nearly kicked out my breakfast early, he said, staring at his best friend and smiling. Why did you yell screens? Barry stared back like a deer caught in headlights. With his eyes widened, he turned to Meek. Meek, the screens. That's how they knew. Who knew? What are you talking about? Meek leaned in, whispering, Did you take some of my pills, bro? Barry hopped off and paced, amped on his thoughts. Think back to last night, Meek. Think about what you heard and then saw. Meek said sadly, I haven't stopped thinking about it, Barry. There's like at least 100 people dead and who knows how many more that haven't been counted yet. It's completely messed up. We were walking away. Our backs were turned from the theater, but we all heard the loud screams coming from inside before anything else happened. Even though it was quick, that's what we heard first, Barry said, pointing to Meek, momentarily pausing his pacing. Yeah, that's right. Caught me by surprise because the movie was one of the old school Marvel movies, and we've all seen them a million times. So why would a bunch of people scream? Exactly, Barry said as he knelt down in front of Meek. His voice becoming more controlled, Barry got closer and spoke more intentionally and calmly. Meek seemed a little off balance by Barry's actions, but he went with it. What if they were screaming because of something they saw on the screen? It's the only place everyone would have been looking at the same time. I was racking my brain last night thinking about why screams, then an explosion. Someone sent a message on the screen intentionally. They made sure everyone in there knew what was about to happen. Barry could almost see the cogwheels in Meek's mind starting to spin out of control. Meaning, Barry continued, meaning this wasn't a bad accident. This was on purpose. Maybe it was personal. Maybe to send a bigger message. I don't know. But with the camera following us right after, there's no way they aren't connected. Holy crap. Oh, holy crap. Meek stood up, and now he was the one pacing as Barry finally sat on the bed. What are we going to do? Who would do that and why? Why kill a bunch of people? Meek stopped his sentence short. I don't know who, obviously, but this has to be because of resources, right? I mean, what is the one thing that's the most valuable today? Food and water. And if there are fewer people, problem gets easier to manage. Meek, after saying it out loud, doubted what he just said, but Barry didn't interrupt him. My headsets, Meek blurted. What about them? I don't think this is really the time to... Barry was cut short. Meek blurted out, No, you don't get it. You remember in all those James Bond movies where he would use all his gadgets to gain access and snoop around and learn secrets and take out bad guys? My newly acquired headsets can help us do that too. Just, maybe minus taking anyone out. But I bet we can get in there and salvage something. Anything that could give us a clue. Okay, Meek. Barry nodded as he rose to his feet. But we're going to need to plan this out. I'm sure it's not exactly open to the public, and we might need some more help. Let's get Mira. Yes, let's go. First to Mira, then to my garage for the planning of Operation Theater Scavenge. Wait, no, that's a terrible name. I'll think of something better, Meek said as they both walked out of Barry's room. Meek scratched his head. Barry smirked as he shook his head, not at all surprised at Meek and his thought process. Just give me a few minutes to check on my dad and change. He pulled on his slept-in clothes. I'll come find you at your place and we can go, okay? Right. You do stink pretty bad. Okay. I'll see you in a few. Meek disappeared and Barry took in a deep breath. He was pumped about what they planned to do, but also realized how dangerous it could be. If they got caught snooping around, that might not end well. Sure enough, it only took him 10 minutes to look in on his dad, shower, and meet up with Meek out front where he waited patiently. By the way, I've taken 2-minute showers before, so I know it's possible. Okay, Meek, let's go. Not skipping a beat, they walked over to Mira's, both deep in thought, every so often looking over their shoulders more than necessary. The two were suspicious of everything now. A car passing by, a random person they didn't recognize. Being on high alert made getting to Mira's house priority number one. After arriving at Mira's, they sat and talked for a few minutes, which was basically Barry trying to re-explain and Meek interrupting over and over because his brain was still on a dopamine rush. Mira, stunned at the news, but didn't hesitate to volunteer. She wanted to know who did this and to make sure the question of why was as clear. Mira's mom was close enough to hear the plan, and even though she hated what was happening, she knew she had little chance of stopping them. The three headed to Meek's garage, and with the door closed behind them, a new plan grew slowly from their collective thoughts. Over at City Hall, Simon passed through the sliding frosted glass doors and positioned himself near the governor, who concluded his conversation. The mayor and a dozen of the city employees listened somberly together. That was
the gifting panic alarm.
Good lord.
You need to find the perfect gift. You have zero idea.
That was so rude, YouTube. Sheesh. That was everyone but the governor, at least. Gibber. I know, right? I don't know if you're still there, Gibber, but you might get a kick out of this since we know where approximately we each live. Governor Ray Nold had discussed the recent attack and how they would bring those guilty to justice by any means necessary. Stupid YouTube. You know what? I might actually switch to Pretzel Rocks right now just because I don't want any more ads. All right, we'll let that run, shall we? And in the meantime, I'll just do my best to keep an eye on the ads. So the governor Ray Nold is kind of an inside joke to the governor that's currently in my state. Well, don't need to get political, but she's not my favorite. Okay. The mayor and a dozen other city employees listened somberly together. That was everyone but the governor, at least. Governor Ray Nold had discussed the recent attack and how they would bring those guilty to justice by any means necessary. City Hall itself was a grand and lavish building. Granite covered everything from the floors to the walls and more. Pillars were positioned throughout to help hold up the tall ceilings, but they also looked grand and could make you feel quite significant when you were there for business. Or there for business and not just a visiting tourist, back when tourists were even allowed. The group had gathered in the main foyer area where the general public used to be able to congregate and essentially look around. Beyond that main area, keycards were needed to access restricted hallways and offices. Now, however, the entire building was off limits. I assure you, my office is looking into this disgusting display of cowardice very closely, and I will be giving a public statement to say as much soon from the explosion site itself, so I can personally view the damage and pay my respects. Such strategic and enlightening speeches always came from the mouth of Governor Nold. The mayor and staff were put at ease hearing these words. Simon, standing close by, but not with the group, remained straight-faced, having been a witness to the dark truth behind the attack. The governor shook a few hands and then swiftly walked towards the exit with Simon in tow. Governor Nold walked directly to his black SUV and shuffled into the back seat. The vehicle, designed much like the old English taxicabs that allowed one back door to open in the opposite direction to the other. This design was done at the governor's request, because he just felt like having it. This allowed the oversized SUV to act more like a limo on the inside without having to have the extra space limos needed. Plus, with the vehicle being electric and the governor using it all the time, the extra size and weight of a limo would have been a nuisance for him in the end. Simon climbed in the opposite door, allowing him to be face to face with Governor Nold as they sat in comfort. Once both were in, the driver pushed a few buttons, and the vehicle took off on autopilot, taking them to their next destination. These idiotic speeches I have to make to keep everyone's feelings happy. Governor Nold grabbed his hand sanitizer and drowned his fingers in it, rubbing his hands together vigorously. I can't wait to see the damage up close and personal, he said, staring Simon in the eyes. Life has shown us that superiority chooses who should stay and who should go. He paused, looking out the window at all the lives outside. Look at them, Simon. They have no idea how insignificant their existence is. Pathetic and sad, really, he said with a small sigh. But that brief second of empathy was lost. They give nothing to society. They only take, always need something from everyone else. No more. Figured out dinner, got some jalapeno Papa Bites from Papa John's. I'm a fan of Papa John's, so good call. The governor grabbed a glass from a side compartment and poured himself a stiff drink. Simon stayed quiet and composed the entire time, like a robot that had been shut down to recharge its batteries. It won't be much longer before they're wiped out, with or without my help. The planet is dying, Simon. He took a sip of his hard beverage that was always ready and waiting for him after meetings like today's. He sat and let his mind wander to a gloomy thought. We have to make sure those that are important survive. Everyone else, a sacrifice for the greater good. And with those final words, he threw his head back, downing the remainder of his drink in one go. The rest of the ride passed in silence while the governor kept his eyes glued on the outdoors. It wasn't every day that he came down from his chrome tower to be amongst the people that he said he would serve. He flashed back to 10 years ago when he had been voted into his position. The final public address he gave to potential voters had a different tune compared to the man he had become today. He chuckled to himself, because back then, he meant every word. Everyone knew Earth had a limited supply of life remaining, and he swore up and down to do everything in his power to protect the people and find a way forward. This message being his platform. And because of that stance, because it wasn't so political but more life-saving, he won. But much had changed in the last 10 years. Survival had become the ultimate challenge. This type of thing used to be a TV show. Now it's everyone's reality. Homeless became a thing of the past due to the new harsh world. The poor souls either found a home to take them in, or the earth dissolved them to ashes. Some of the changes were gradual, like stores closing and hours changing of when folks could be outside during certain months and seasons. But the main change that happened that had been instant, that no one was ready for, the temperature. Of all the things that were predicted to be slow, the temperature was not. There had been one night in particular that began with snow, but as the temperature rapidly dropped, the snow changed to a dangerous ice shower. If you were indoors, you were safe. But if you were caught outside because you were marveling at the snow in early October, you were in real danger. When the ice struck someone, it would either pierce their skin or knock them out. That first time, there were dozens in the doctor's offices being treated, and a few people lost their lives. Everything changed after that night. Governor Nold, like many politicians before him, had been bought. Pharmaceuticals, oil and coal, and of course the newly added coalition of skyscrapers of tomorrow, that most people just refer to as Chrome Towers, SSOT or SOT, as the rich refer to them. They all paid big money to the governor to make sure his agenda aligned with theirs. Over time, he believed in the same poison he was selling to the public. And now, in his custom SUV driving to the site of the attack that he orchestrated, the governor knew he had changed. No longer the man that he believed in a future for all. The SUV slowed and eventually stopped at their destination. Simon, without skipping a beat, got out of the vehicle and stepped around to the other side. With it now being the afternoon, the temperatures were shifting to an uncomfortable range, but the show must go on. The first thing that Simon noticed had been the smell of the aftermath. He faced the side of the street that went unscathed by the attack, which at this point had filled with pedestrians waiting to see what might happen. Hundreds of people gathered behind barriers as Simon inhaled the burning wood, smoldering metal, and the hint of burnt flesh that stung his nostrils mercilessly. Surveying the crowd for a moment, he noticed no visible signs of a threat, only sad faces. This gathering was different, though, compared to previous engagements. Usually, there would be plenty of noise and yelling coming from the crowd, but today, silence. This made Simon very uneasy. He stepped back into the SUV momentarily. "Sir, something is off about today." "How so?" The governor frowned. "There is, of course, the expected large crowd, but they are silent. No one is saying anything, and they're just staring at your SUV. I don't like it," Simon said with just the slightest bit of emotion. "Simon, if I cowered away from everything that seemed off in life, I wouldn't be sitting in this SUV. Let's go." The governor opened his door and slipped out with a cheesy politician's smile on his face. Simon stood just behind him, keeping a very close eye on the crowd. The governor kept his appearance cheerful, even though now he too could feel the change as everyone stood and said nothing. "Good citizens, thank you for coming out here today to witness such a terrible scene and tragic loss of life," he shouted loudly so that all could hear him. I'm going to meet with the chief of police and inspect the inside so we can understand more about what has taken place here. Please, be patient. I will give a formal statement when I return. Thank you." Governor Nold allowed a moment for any responses, but the only communication he received were the eyes full of anger and death glares. Feeling Simon's tug on his upper arm, they both moved around the other side of the SUV to survey the carnage and destruction. Before getting to the building, they were approached by the chief of police and saw a line of officers protecting the outside of the building. Some were in regular uniform, while others were kitted with heavier riot gear. "Chief, good to see you. Tell me, why are there so many officers standing guard, and in riot gear no less? Wouldn't a police tape do the trick?" the governor said with a cheesy smile. "I'm gonna go grab water." "Do it." Glad you could make it downtown, Governor Nold, and I wish that were true. The people here have lost a great deal in passing years, and this cowardly act sent them over the edge. I sympathize with them all the way, believe me. A friend of mine was inside this building when the explosion happened." The chief shifted and squared up with the governor, looking him in the eyes. "I would be on the other side of the barrier right now too if I could. They're calm now, but that wasn't the case earlier. So, for now, I have a job to do." The chief took a breath, holding back his emotions. "You can follow me now so you can see firsthand what's happened." Please, Chief, lead on," the governor said in his best attempt of sounding sympathetic. On the inside, he could only think about getting this whole thing over with so he could leave and take a hot shower. He felt his skin crawl, and he could see some of the carnage he had caused from looking at the exterior alone. Chief, Governor Nold, and Simon all went to the front of the theater. Immediately you could see the scarring of the flames that burst out of the front doors. This was no ordinary explosion, Governor. This was different. The heat from the blast melted everything within close proximity, and everything beyond that either melted significantly or, as you can see here by the front entrance, burn marks. Chief pointed to where some of the ticket booth stood. Most of it was missing from the explosion, but the metal frame was still there that was blackened from the flames. The further in they went, the blacker and stronger the scent became. We can't go all the way down, Governor Nold, because for one, techs are still gathering evidence, and two, it's structurally not sound. I don't know how the roof is still above us. You can see the light pouring through the ceiling in the hole over there. We think, at the moment, that that's where the bomb was hiding. And the blast not only went out as intended, but straight up too. The chief pointed to a portion of the floor where the spread of a blast could be vaguely made out. The three of them weren't even halfway into the building. They figured they would have probably just entered a scream room where a movie was playing, since the carpeted area where they were standing looked like it was in the hallway that led to the other screen rooms. But with so much destruction, it was difficult to say for sure exactly where they would have been standing had the bomb not gone off. How many, Chief? The governor said, resting a hand on his shoulder as a sign of sympathy. Honestly, we're not sure yet. We've gathered the bodies we could, but we have to believe, based on how the blast and the heat removed or melted so much in the front over there, some people are just gone. He choked up a little as he said this and stepped away from the group, heading back to the sunlight and air, leaving the governor and Simon alone for a moment. Simon, this is amazing. I never knew that this bomb could do so much devastation, he whispered. Simon, on hearing these words while they stood in the middle of the aftermath, couldn't believe that he had taken part in this. Anarchy. Simon knew he had done a lot of unmentionable things as the command of his boss, or at the command of his boss, but this reached a new level of scary even for him. Still, he kept his composure too. Chief, one final question, and thank you for doing this today. You've been very brave. The chief just nodded with a saddened face. Do we have any ideas on who did this? The governor asked with some uptick in his tone, placing his hand on his chin to make it look like he was concerned. No, not yet. We're still reviewing camera footage and examining evidence. These things take time. But I guarantee you one thing, Governor. Whoever is behind this will pay a very high price for it. I guarantee it. The chief's demeanor changed from sadness to motivation. The governor saw this, and although he usually wouldn't care, this time he felt how real his words were. I have no doubts, Chief, no doubts at all. Governor Nold stepped away and returned to face the crowd one more time. After moving around to the opposite side to see them all, he was taken aback by the sight. Before, everyone had been standing, staring, waiting, but now they were all on their knees with their eyes closed. The governor proceeded to go through the motions anyway. Good people, I have seen the devastation that occurred here, and I am shocked and dismayed. I have spoken with the chief, and I assure you, with the full cooperation of my office, We will find the culprit or culprits that did this and bring them to justice to the fullest extent of the law. I promise. Silence. The governor stood stunned and felt like a statue. Once again, Simon's hand gave him the nudge needed to keep moving. Simon had opened the door behind Governor Nold and encouraged him to get inside. Once they were both in, they slowly drove away, leaving the people still kneeling. For once, the governor sat in silence, contemplating the door he had opened. Even though he felt confident it wouldn't come back to him, creeping nerves invaded him for the first time in a long time. And that is the end of chapter 2, which is good timing. So there we go. Thank you. So, what do we think? How are we doing? That's good. Such a good book so far. Thank you, Adamantine. You're hooked? Well, good. I'm pleased because there's definitely more to come. What page are we even on? We ended on page 50, so yeah. Your tea stays hot that long? Yeah, I have a warmer, actually. So I use this metal mug on purpose. Sits on the warmer and magnifique. The author describes the scene so well. You got it? Okay. Yeah, it's a must-have. I'm telling you that right now. It is a must-have. All right. Well, as the notification says on the screen, I'm going to be reading in Discord here very soon. If anyone wishes to join us, it's just !4th to get you to the Discord. We're going to be continuing our read of Fourth Wing in there. But for this book, for Final Earth, we will continue. What is today? Thursday? We will continue on Sunday. I almost forgot what day it was. So yeah, thank you all for being here. Mal, thank you again for the gifted sub. That was very kind of you. I can't wait to see you all again. It's been a lot of fun, and I appreciate the support. Now, we need to go find someone to raid. But who? Who should we raid? Let's see, last time we raided After Hours Broalition. Let's see. Man, there's so many people on. I think... You know what? This is very unexpected of me. Oh, just kidding. She's offline now. Never mind. We can't raid that person. Gosh darn it. Why is this so difficult? There's so many people online. This should not be this hard. We're going to go raid someone from the Hype Mine, I think. Because they're a great new group of friends I've made. The question is who? I know. I know who we're going to raid. We're going to go say hi to Iron Shooter. Her name is Haley. Here's the raid message. She's a sweetheart. She's a lovely person. Just making sure I type this properly. I think I got it. Oh, helps if I put a actual command in there. There we go. Did I do that wrong? Maybe she's not accepting raids. Why would she not accept raids? Did I do that wrong? What? What is happening? All right, so we're not going to raid her because it won't let me. This is going really well. All right, we're going to raid somebody else from the Hype Mine. And her username is fantastic, by the way. Let me just make sure I'm spelling this right, of course. Her name is Ovarian Barbarian, and I think that's fantastic. Okay, there we go. 10 out of 10 raid process would recommend. Okay, you know what, Adamantine? It's not my fault they won't let me raid to them. But seriously, thank you for being here. I very much appreciate it. I look forward to reading to you again on Sunday.